I want to speak today about something I'm very grateful for, which is the way the right book and the right film comes along at exactly the right time and gives me new information, inspiration or insight into life. And this has been going on for a long time, and the most recent book that came my way came as often they do, which is in an unexpected way. I tend to visit a lot of libraries and therefore get exposed to literature from different parts of the country, and it was the kind of book that I would normally not notice or desire to take away with me. And it's called Angels in My Hair, and it's by Lorna Byrne. And everything about it is rather an old copy with an old cover. The subject of angels did not actually appeal to me to read about, and yet nonetheless I definitely felt a distinct nudge, as I always do when it comes to selecting books and films and other materials, and it was like, yeah, just take hold of this one, will you? So I just put aside my slight resistance and took it out to the library, and I'm very much enjoying reading it at the moment. Lorna Byrne writes in a very simple style, very easy to read, and she's simply talking about her life. And what makes it such an unusual book is because from her very earliest memories of even being a baby, she has an awareness of being able to see the angelic realm. And so her education is very much less to do with parents and schooling and friends, and much more to do with these invisible beings that she has had a constant communication with throughout the whole of her life, as far as I can understand. And it's been a deeply moving book, and I'm reminded of one or two things which I've come across many times before, and this is something I find, I don't know whether you do, but if there's a really useful idea, I tend to come across it, embrace it, and time goes by and I forget all about it. So this is one of these, the subject of angels. I've taken in lots of information in the past, but nothing for quite a long time. And reading the book made me realise, because she spells it out for you very, very clearly, which is that all human beings have got a guardian angel, and in addition to this one we are also able to communicate with other angels too. And it works in this way: so long as the person is convinced they don't exist, as long as the person is skeptical and makes no effort to communicate, then simply nothing is going to happen. That's very, very clear. And it requires an act of will on the part of the person to say, I'm open to what the angels may have to say. I'm open to the possibility of angels. So being reminded by this for the nth time as I read this book, this is what I've been doing. I've been tuning into my own guardian angel and just asking for help. And this is a straightforward thing that we can all do. And if you're going through a particularly difficult patch in life, it's well worth bearing in mind that first of all, you do have a guardian angel, whether you see it or believe in it or not. There are some people who can see them. There are many, many people who have mystical experiences, and this is something that Lorna writes about. And she mentions this again and again throughout the book, how so many people, huge numbers of people, have these mystical spiritual experiences of coming across other beings, whether they're extraterrestrials or angels or other orders of existence such as elementals. Only there's such a taboo against speaking about it, so it gives everyone the illusion that no one else really pays any attention to this form of existence, all these different beings, and yet people actually do. But because it's a taboo subject, people don't talk about it, and that gives us the illusion that very, very few people have such experiences. Reading Lorna's book makes me realise that in a way she's incredibly fortunate to have such an awareness. And she's literally able to see these beings, and has done for her entire life. And one of the hard things for her to realise is that, especially when she was growing up, she was told again and again by the angels not to speak about her experiences, because in those days, she was born and brought up in the 1950s, people who saw other forms of existence were simply regarded to be insane, and there was a very genuine risk of being carted off to a mental institution. And so that's how things have been for a long time, and it's only in recent years people can speak about angels and other beings without being ridiculed and in danger of being incarcerated. So I'm very inspired by this book. Something I'm noticing about 2013 is it seems to be very much a matter of asking yourself, what do you really resonate with? What is it that does it for you? And that's a very helpful thing for us to be aware of, what makes us cringe and we just don't want to be involved in, and what really attracts us. And so at the moment this is one of my areas of interest, is what people call angels and the way that they've influenced human beings throughout all time really. And I've given an example already, but I'll highlight it now, which is if I'm in a library and I get a little nudge towards a book which I wouldn't normally consider choosing with my intellect or my rational mind, and the next thing I know I'm just getting this feeling, well, I've just had a little nudge, I'm going to go along with it. So if you have an awareness of angels or other non-physical beings that are here to help us, that are constantly manifesting universal unconditional love, then when we get a little nudge, the other example, which is very, very famous, throughout the world this has happened, which is where someone is, say, sitting down on a bench and they suddenly get a feeling, just a little nudge, it would be a good idea to get up from the bench and move away, and they walk away from the bench, and seconds later a piece of masonry falls from higher up and smashes the bench to pieces. There's lots of examples of people's lives being saved, and this is something that Lorna writes about in such a degree of detail I was very surprised about. And in her ability to observe things, she's seen many occasions, including accidents, where angels have done something to mitigate against the severity of the damage. And it's interesting reading the book when she realises that a man that she's working with is going to encounter an accident, and this is something that's too severe and will not be able to be avoided, and he actually gets shot down dead. So it seems to be that there are examples where circumstances between humans are set up in such a way they can't be influenced and interfered with. But there are many occasions she writes about where something is not as bad as it would otherwise have been had the angel not acted in some way to cushion the fall or lessen the severity of the impact. That's been very interesting. If you're talking about an example of how fate and destiny are involved in human life, one way to look at it is in the shamanic sense of soul contracts, which are drawn up between individuals before they're incarnated, before they get born. And then looking at it from a different perspective in terms of us living our daily lives, it does seem to be very clear that there are beings, and they are very much coming from a loving place and doing their best to help us. And there's examples where a person might have a choice of two directions to go. Literally, you could be walking or driving along, it's, do I go left, do I go right? If you're open to a suggestion, you might find yourself taking the turn you wouldn't normally take, and that can then lead to a very interesting encounter. You can meet someone important that you could share information with. So it operates on very mundane day-to-day levels, as well as really big things such as you turn a particular direction and the next thing you know you meet someone and they become loving of your life and become married to them. So it can work in really life-changing ways or very trivial little ways. So yeah, certainly the idea is that these beings do intervene to help us, coming from a loving place. So continuing from what I was speaking about a little bit earlier, Lorna gives a little quote with regard to the situation with people having spiritual experiences, and I think it's worth reading out to you, so here we go. One thing people must remember is there are millions of people who are actually having spiritual experiences, but they're afraid to speak about it. There are plenty of people who believe that angels are helping them and who actually sometimes feel them, but often they say to themselves, maybe I didn't see them, maybe it was my imagination. It's wonderful to acknowledge them and to say, yes, I do believe in angels, yes, I do believe in God. Many times we don't do this. Many times we only say these words when we are bereaved, very ill, or desperate in some other way. Only then do we turn to God and pray. We are often afraid to acknowledge God and his angels. As you grow spiritually, you will find that you won't be so afraid to acknowledge God, his angels, or any spiritual being that's come from the heavens. So I felt that amplified the point I was making earlier, but much more so. Okay, so it's constant truth telling. I want you all to know that before I made this film today, I was in a pretty negative state of mind, struggling very much and just feeling very oppressed by life. And when I was out shopping in Asda, I just connected with my guardian angel and connected with the angels in general and said, please help me. And I've said it quite a number of times in the hour it took for me to get from Asda to here and start making the film. So it's a big thank you to all the angels, because you really helped me to find the words, and without you I wouldn't have known what to say, so thank you.